All right, we'll get this right very shortly. I need to do my mentor proud that I stood in appropriately for her. Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that perinatal mental health is the more appropriate terminology because it has to do with the gamut of mental health issues that women face during pregnancy and particularly after pregnancy. So that's why I've posted perinatal mental health, but most of you would know it or would be more accustomed with the general terminology, postnatal depression or the baby blues. Now, again, whilst waiting for Yasmin, a few bits of information. The reason why it's called perinatal mental health is that there are different components of this. So you've got baby blues. I'll explain that once Yasmin comes. Then you've got the postnatal depression, which is a progression from baby blues. And then you have the third element. Again, these are things that a lot of people don't talk about. It's called puerperal psychosis. That's the psychotic end of it. That fortunately is very, very rare. Okay, now we've got Yasmin.
Finally.
Yasmin. Hi, Yasmin.
Morning, afternoon, Uncle.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You look very, very well.
Thank you. So do you.
Okay. I've spent the first few minutes just getting used to this. It's my first time doing Instagram Live. And I've
Mine
said,
too.
oh, yours too. Okay.
Yes.
And I said to everybody to be gentle with me. So be gentle with me as well, will you?
No problem.
Okay, great. So great to have you, Yasmin.
Thank
I've just
you.
been saying that today we're going to be talking about well, I've chosen to use the more recent terminology, it's now called perinatal mental health,
Okay.
because like I explained, it includes quite a number of elements, but it's something, it's what we usually would refer to before as postnatal depression. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and then a lot of people refer to it as baby blues as well, but they're actually different. And
Yes.
we'll talk about that as we go along. But before we go into the meat of today's topic, just wanted you to say a few things about yourself. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about you. I've known you since you were in your mother's womb, literally, literally. And ladies and gentlemen, Yasmin, our guest today, I've known all her life. Our families grew up together. Her mother, incidentally, was my sister's classmate in school. They were in school together. So it's true that I've known her since she was in her mother's womb. So Yasmin, welcome to today's Hangout Cafe.
Thank you, Uncle.
Do you just want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay. I currently work in HR, even though I'm a qualified lawyer. I love art and creativity. Um, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay, okay, and you you've got two children now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, that's the other thing that I kept getting my head around, that I've always known Yasmin as my little Yasmin. Now you are a mother. You're a mother
Yes.
and a mother of two children.
Yes.
Okay, so your first child is how many years old now?
2.5.
Two and a half. And your second child is how many
She's
days old?
2 weeks old
2 weeks
and a
old.
day.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Yasmin just had a baby 2 weeks ago, and so please just say hi to Yasmin, congratulate her for the new one, for the new baby. And I said to her when we spoke earlier in the week that we're expecting two more babies, Yasmin.
I plead the fifth.
Okay, okay. But congratulations, Yasmin.
Thank you, Uncle.
Um, okay, so we want to talk about perinatal mental health. Like I said, a lot of people would refer to it as postnatal depression. And how did it start for you, Yasmin?
For me, it started, looking back in hindsight, it started before I had my daughter, my first daughter. Um, and there were quite a few triggers, pretty much a few losses. The culmination of which was the passing of my grandma.
Okay.
Um, and so there were quite a few, there were about 3 or 4 women that I knew who directly and indirectly who were pregnant at the same time as me. And along the course found out that they had lost their pregnancies. One of them hit quite close to home because we pretty much got pregnant at the same time. And she lost her pregnancy at 7 months. So that was quite hard. One of my colleagues and friends at work passed away, and I found out through people's social media, through people's WhatsApp messages, WhatsApp updates that he had passed away. And like I said, the final blow was my grandma passing.
And this was whilst you were pregnant.
This was whilst I was pregnant.
Okay.
And so dealing with the grief was quite tough. Obviously, I wanted to grieve, but I was also aware that I couldn't really do that as I possibly would if I wasn't pregnant, so as not to cause any adverse effects to my child. So that was quite hard. And then thankfully, though, God did it in such a way that my daughter came at 37 weeks and 2 days.
Okay.
And the day before she came was one of the lowest days I've ever had. I literally just wanted to be by myself. It was the day of the royal wedding, so it should have been a day where I should have been excited but I was just very, very down in the dumps. I was literally just by myself. So I went
Do, do,
to my
you,
room.
just explain that a bit more, because normally the day a baby is born is meant to be a joyous day. Everybody's happy. In fact, you're saying phew, thank God the baby's out and all that. So
Yeah.
just describe again how you felt.
Okay, so the day before she came, I was just really, really, really down. Um, I'm I can't think of the words to use to describe it, but I was just very, very low. I didn't really want to be around anyone because I didn't want to bring anyone else's mood down. I spent the best part of the evening weeping quietly so that my sister wouldn't hear and be worried. And went to bed, started feeling contractions, which kind of annoyed me, to be honest. And by Sunday morning, just before 12, my daughter was born. And I know a lot of women are like, oh, as soon as their baby comes out, I'm so in love with this new person. I didn't have that at all. I was just grateful that she was born. She was healthy. I was healthy. I was alive. It was very surreal that I was now a mother. Um, I felt a lot better than I did the day before, and I was very grateful, but there was just no extreme joy that, I've finally had my baby. I've been looking forward to this moment. It was just a lot of mixed emotions. But I was happy, but then, yeah.
Wow. And at this point, actually, ladies and gentlemen, before we go on, just to mention, at some point we're going to be asking Yasmin questions. I've got lots of questions because I've been thinking about this throughout the week. But please ask Yasmin questions. You can put them on the question. It's called a question box, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Remember, I'm getting used to this. Okay. All right. So please feel free to post questions, and then we'll ask Yasmin as we go along. But did you feel that there was something wrong at that point?
Yes and no. So based on the day I'd had before my daughter was born, I didn't necessarily feel that I was slipping into depression or anything of that sort. I just thought, okay, this is just part of me grieving the loss of my grandma. I should say that my grandma and I were very, very close. Well, I'm very close to my grandparents. And so it was very, very difficult to comprehend that she wasn't going to meet my daughter. She wasn't going to be around at all. Um, so I didn't think I was having the baby blues or depressed. I just thought I was grieving. Um, and I know before I had my daughter, I had tried to reach out to different helplines that the NHS has, just to speak about my grief The appointments I had before I had my daughter, I did mention that my grandma had passed away, but it didn't seem to be a warning sign to the midwives or the people that were looking after me for any
So,
predisposition or anything.
so even though
Um,
you had mentioned these things, they didn't think you were going into depression.
yes, so I'd mentioned several times that my grandma had passed away. I was very close to her and I was finding it difficult to deal with, but nobody really seemed to take that on board or note it or feel that that was significant enough to lead me into depression or anything of the sort. And even after I had my daughter, most of the questions that were being asked were more for clinical diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so I feel like people like me kind of slipped through the cracks. So most of the questions were, do I feel like I want to harm my child? Do I feel like I want to harm myself? Which none of that applied to me at all. I just felt very, very low afterwards. And I literally just felt like I was on autopilot, just getting on with it because, I mean, what choice did I have but to get on with it?
Okay. And then after the baby was born, how long did this go on for, and how did you feel going on?
It went on for a few months. My daughter was born in May, and I started feeling better in January 2019. So that was quite a while. Um, the worst of it was when I went back to Nigeria. So there was quite a lot of change, and not just little change, but big changes that were happening in my life at the same time. So the biggest of which was my nan passing away. Um, and then my husband and I moved house whilst I was in England. So he had moved our stuff. So I'd left one house and moved into, was going back home to another house. So by the time I got back to Nigeria, it was just very overwhelming, knowing that I was just going back to one, an unfamiliar space. Even though it was my home, it was not somewhere I'd been. And so it was just very, very, very daunting. And then knowing that I mean, being in England, there was a bit of distance. So I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't really feel real that she wasn't here anymore.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I got back to Nigeria, going back to the house that I grew up in, which was my grandparents' house, it was very, I'm trying to find the words. I can't think of what word to use, but it was very,
Real?
perhaps unnerving. Yes, very real that she wasn't there, she wasn't coming back. Um, yeah, so that was pretty much when I feel like it really hit.
Okay. Now, big question, because the thing about postnatal depression or perinatal mental health is that it's been said that it usually goes under the radar. It's actually a lot more common than people realize. And one of the big issues is that people don't talk about it. Did you
Yes.
tell anybody how you were feeling?
Apart from my husband, no.
Right. Was there any reason why? Or you remember I asked you earlier that did you realize what was going on? Did you realize you were slipping into depression apart from the other ways you were feeling?
Like I said, it wasn't until I got to Nigeria that I really felt, okay, yes, I'm slipping into it or I've slipped into it. I did reach out to a few friends to ask questions on one of the days that in fact, the day that I think I realized this was what it was. Um, I was just feeling very low. I remember we were supposed to we actually went to my parents-in-law's house. And I just remember waking up and just feeling very down, not wanting to go out, not wanting to go anywhere, not wanting to leave my bed even, not wanting to do anything. But I mustered up the courage, got dressed, got ready, went to my mother-in-law's house. But all the while I was there, I just wanted to go home and just crawl back into bed and just not have to deal with anyone, not have to look after my daughter, not have to face my husband. Um, and I remember on that day, I reached out to a few friends and a few aunties and just messaged them because I had an idea of what it was, or rather, I knew what it was, but I just wanted to find out if anybody else had felt the same way. after they'd had their children, and if they had, what had they done to feel better or to get out of it. And then I wanted to make sure that I wasn't actually sliding into depression.
Okay.
But yeah, they were supportive and it was good to talk about it. But at the same time, I didn't want to talk about it.
Okay. Uh, I've been waiting to ask you, how was your husband feeling about this, and what did he do?
Um, I've asked him the same question, and he basically felt that I'd gone through or was dealing with a lot of very difficult circumstances at the same time. And he was just very supportive. He was there for me, whatever I needed, gave me the room to be without any questions, no judgment. Whenever I needed a chat or a shoulder to cry on, he was there. And that was pretty much it. I, One of the things I know that stuck out was I felt like I was failing at life.
Mm,
So I felt like I was failing as a wife, failing as a mother. Um, the typical thing of there's a lot of housework that needs to be done. I'm not being able to do it because new mom.
mm,
Um, and I should state that I abhor dirt
mm,
and mess. And even just normally seeing a dirty kitchen or a messy living room would inspire me or motivate me to get it cleaned up. But I just had no motivation whatsoever. I would see it and just look at it and just be like, hmm, okay.
mm.
And the more I did that, the more it upset me because I'm like, this isn't me. Normally, I would see that and be moved to do something about it, but I would just see it and just not be bothered or not even be interested in trying to clean it up. And that just left me feeling even worse and made me feel like I was failing at everything. I felt like I was doing a just about decent job of looking after my daughter. Um, yeah, so that was quite something.
Okay, I spoke to you earlier, and you remember you said you were aware, in a sense, of what was going on. Yeah.
Yes.
Now that's partly because of your background. You'd read a bit about it,
Yes.
so you kind of recognize some of the symptoms. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but did you distinguish between the two? Because there's a difference between the baby blues and depression.
Yes.
And why this is important is a lot of people don't realize the difference between this, but did you distinguish between the two? Were you
Yes.
able to? Okay.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us what the differences are, and then I'll add to that?
I will try.
No, come on.
So I knew it wasn't baby blues because from what I'd read, baby blues sounded more like you had a few days where you just felt a bit low or you weren't feeling too good. This was me feeling constantly low all the time. Like I said, I was on autopilot. Even when I was having to go out and smile at people, it just felt like it was empty. It didn't feel like it was me. Um, I had days when I was praying. My prayers were literally, Lord, give me the grace and the strength to get through today, just so I could make it out of bed. So I had so many days where I didn't even want to leave my bed. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think it's a good time to just mention, just for general information, that there's a difference between baby blues and postnatal depression. So
Yeah.
baby blues is actually very, very, very common. It's said that about 60 to 80% of women will have baby blues, particularly in their first pregnancy.
Okay.
And it usually starts within the first day or so. And the principal symptoms of baby blues are just crying, just crying endlessly, not interested in what's going on. I think the commonest symptom is just crying and just not feeling energetic about anything. Now, the good news is that baby blues, even though it's very common, that it would start from like about the first 2 to 3 days of having the baby, and then not last more than, usually not more than a few weeks, maybe a month. But then there's a point where it can then become depression,
Yeah.
postnatal depression, which lasts a lot longer. And it said that about 10 to 20% of women will progress from baby blues to postnatal depression. And that's really where the issue is. Because whilst a lot of people might be aware of baby blues, even if they don't understand it or they don't realize that it's baby blues, the, the difficult thing, the more important thing is that some people will slide into depression. But you said you knew what the difference was, right? You knew that
Yes,
this was more than baby blues. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Now, a lot of recent literature. Okay, actually, let me say one or two other things. When you read about baby blues and depression, what were the principal things that you found that they said cause these things? What are the things that, and particularly from your experience as well?
Uh, Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay.
Um, but for me, like I said, the triggers were the loss that I experienced and knew of during pregnancy. Those were definitely the triggers for me. For other people, it could just be the overwhelming sense of going from being a woman to being a mother.
Yeah.
Yes, you technically have 9 months or 10 months to prepare for this child you're bringing into the world, but it's one of those things that until you experience it, there's no amount of preparation that essentially prepares you for it.
Yeah.
And so it can be very overwhelming, especially when you're up late at night breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is not necessarily going according to plan. It's something that looks so easy, but is very difficult. It's something that a lot of women don't speak about, but a lot of women, again, like postnatal depression is quite common that a lot of women struggle with. Um, yeah, so there's so many different things that could trigger it. You're still dealing with a lot of your body full of hormones. It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right, Yasmin, because the particularly with baby blues, the common one, the generally common one, it's been attributed to a lot of the hormonal changes that take place in pregnancy. You know, a lot changes in the woman's body when she gets pregnant, and
Yes.
then leading into having the baby and breastfeeding and all that, the stress, all the things you have to cope with. But with postnatal depression, and that's what I want to kind of get us to hone in on, because, like I said, it's the one entity that a lot of people don't realize when they slip from baby blues into
Yes.
postnatal depression. Um, it's usually said that postnatal women who end up with postnatal depression, oftentimes there's usually an antecedent, something that must have happened in the past
Okay.
that they were going through that then led to the depression. And I know you've mentioned the things that happened to you whilst you were pregnant, the triggers. But then, can you think of anything else before then, before pregnancy, that you think might have predisposed you in this way?
Um, the only thing I can think of is as a teenager, I had anger issues. Um, but other than that, nothing else. Again, because like you mentioned, I studied psychology, and right from a young age, mental health was something that I was quite interested in, and have been interested in my whole life, pretty much. So it was easy for me to notice the symptoms and know what to look out for and to recognize it. With the anger issues, how I dealt with that was praying about it and making a conscious effort um, to get rid of it, because positive energy and positive vibes are so important. I know it feels and sounds like a cliche these days because everybody is always saying it on social media, but it is very, very important, very, very key for mental health.
Okay. So you don't mind my asking you, as a teenager, why were you having anger issues? What was the problem?
I didn't have the kind of relationship with my mom that I wanted, and I envied my friends for having with their mothers. That was basically it.
So that always made you angry?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And do you think that would have contributed to your mental state coming into pregnancy, becoming an adult and all that?
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, possibly. I did do a lot of healing and soul searching before I became pregnant, because I recognized and realized that in order to have the kind of relationship with my children that I wanted, I needed to heal from whatever wounds or issues or scars I may have had growing up.
Okay. I wanted to come back to your husband.
Okay.
So remember you said you spoke to him, you told him what was going on. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you notice any changes with him as well? And I'll tell you the reason why I'm asking in a second. But did you notice any?
I can't say that I did. If there were, I didn't. Only because I was, do I dare say tunnel visioned?
Hmm,
So I wasn't really seeing past what was going on with me.
yeah. Okay, and the reason why I asked is that a lot of people don't realize that there's such a thing as postnatal depression in men as well.
I
Um,
wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, it's actually and as bad as postnatal depression is in women in terms of the fact that people don't talk about it. Recent literature is saying that there's actually postnatal depression in men. It's actually called paternal postnatal mental disorder,
Oh
and
wow.
that a lot of postnatal depression in women goes unnoticed because, like I said, people don't talk about it
Yeah.
and all, but that actually men also suffer from postnatal depression, and theirs is worse because men don't talk about anything at all. So if a woman doesn't talk about postnatal depression, you can imagine a man going through all those mood swings. I
Same.
was just curious to say, with hindsight, um, do you think that there was any such thing with your husband at all?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think so.
He wasn't withdrawn. I mean, if he was going to cry, he wouldn't cry in front of you anyway. He would lock
He
himself or
probably
something.
would.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I didn't. I didn't notice. In hindsight, no, I
Okay,
didn't notice
okay. So,
anything.
so Yasmin, before we take questions from other people, if you've gone through this, yeah, you went
Yeah.
through it in your first pregnancy. You're
Yes.
now in your second pregnancy. So obviously, you're more knowledgeable. You know what to look out for. But what advice would you give to women out there? That lots of women listen to you. Some have gone through this, and are probably thinking, "Oh my God, oh, that's what I had then." But there are loads of others who are either pregnant at this point or believing God for pregnancy. And if there's anybody believing God for to get pregnant, you will get pregnant in Jesus' name.
Amen.
What advice would you give to women?
Um, when you're praying about your pregnancy, this is one thing I didn't do. I focused more on the physical aspects of pregnancy and prayed about my children. I totally did not even think to pray about my mental health or my mental state of mind. I say that because um, while I was pregnant, sorry, I've just lost my train of thoughts. Um, yeah, I didn't think to meant to pray about my mental health. So I had an amazing pregnancy the first time round and the second time round. Um,
Sorry. Let me interrupt you for a second. I just saw a comment that says, "Good to know that men go through postnatal depression." Why? Why would somebody say it's good to know? But anyway, I imagine it's just to say that for what women go through, it's good to know that. Well,
men
yeah, okay.
deal with the
Sorry
same
to
thing.
interrupt you. Go on, go on.
No worries. Yeah, so I had an amazing pregnancy both times round physically. But the one thing that nobody stopped to ask about because everybody just thinks, oh, ask about the physical symptoms. Nobody stopped to think or ask about my mental health. So I would just say if you start feeling down in any way, shape, or form, um, even if it's not something that you necessarily think you should be concerned about, speak to someone about it. Um, that's the best advice I can give. Speak to someone about it. Make sure you have a lot of support. Um, do everything you can within your power to keep and maintain a positive mindset. And yeah, that would be pretty much the main advice I would give.
Okay. And then I just thought to ask you as well. You remember you said you had the baby in May and it lasted till January.
Yes.
So that's at least 6 months, a long time. And remember, like we said, you'd moved from baby blues, the initial bit, into depression, uh, which is quite a significant thing. What would you say was your lowest point in all that you were feeling?
My lowest point was one night. I put my daughter to bed. My husband had fallen asleep as well, and I had started off weeping in bed. I then went to the bathroom to clean up my face, and I was just continually weeping. And I just kept looking at them, and the lowest point was, even if it was briefly, was considering suicide. That was my lowest point.
Okay. And the reason why I ask again, remember we'd said or established that a lot of people don't recognize it as depression. A lot of people don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But why it's important is because, as we all know now, depression can lead to suicidal tendencies.
Yes.
And just reading quite a bit about it, there are a number of people that have um, lost their lives as a result, unfortunately. I mean, there are a few stats that I'll give at the end. But before you got to that low point, did you feel yourself slipping lower and lower? Or did you just wake up one day? As in, what I'm trying to say, Yasmin, is was it a gradual slide, or was it you were okay one day and then all of a sudden a big dip?
I think it was a bit of both. More gradual than sudden, though, to be fair. Like I said, I'd had a lot of low days. I prayed hard just to get out of bed every day. Um, I mean, I would wake up and my first line would be, "Good morning, Lord. Thank you for waking me up today. I'm grateful that I'm alive another day, but really and truly, I need you to just move my body out of bed and be able to get through today. If I survive today, again, I wake up tomorrow. Thank you. We do it all over again. And just hope and pray that tomorrow is a better day, mentally, physically, everything. Um, so yeah, it was gradual, but it wasn't necessarily sudden, but it wasn't a slow, gradual thing. And like I said, I felt like I was failing at life in general. Um, Outside of my titles as a woman, so outside of being a mother, a wife, sister, I didn't know who I was. I literally felt lost. I couldn't remember who I was before having a baby. And then, like I said, I don't think I ever really got to grieve properly,
Mm,
because I was heavily pregnant when my grandma passed away. Um, and so a lot of the words that I got was be strong, and I was obviously conscious of not allowing what I was dealing with to affect my child. And then once baby was born, didn't have a choice but to focus on baby as opposed to myself. So all of that rolled into one, plus the hormonal changes. Yeah, it was a lot.
okay. Just speaking on what you said just now about focusing on the baby, because one of the classic symptoms that women demonstrate or exhibit in postnatal depression is this apathy towards the baby, even sometimes to the extreme of wanting to harm the baby. Did you ever feel that at all?
Yes. When I say yes, I didn't ever want to harm my child. Let me just clarify. But I definitely did feel a detachment from her. So I was basically just going through the whole rigmarole of, okay, I have a new human that I need to look after, and making sure that she survives each day and is growing, and not just growing and surviving, but thriving. Um, but that was it. Like I said, when I had her, most women talk of, oh, I was so overwhelmed with joy and happiness when my baby came out. I didn't have any of that. And I remember saying to my husband distinctly, like, I don't really have that overwhelming sense of, oh yeah, I absolutely love her. I'd look at her, I knew I loved her because how could I not? But I didn't have that overwhelming sense of, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I love my child. She's absolutely beautiful. You know, I would just look at her and it almost bordered on resentment at times.
Wow.
And that would then make me feel guilty. And when I say resentment, that's because I was pregnant, I'm heavily pregnant, I wasn't able to go back to Nigeria for my grandma's funeral. And so a lot of the thoughts that would come up were, if I wasn't pregnant, I would have been there for my grandma. Maybe I could have been there to cheer her up and, you know, ginger her to get better. And, you know, maybe she wouldn't have gone when she went. Um, and that would just leave me feeling absolutely guilty because who's to say that if that wasn't the case, if I was there, she probably most likely would still have passed away.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I struggled a lot with bordering on almost resenting my daughter and then having those thoughts and immediately feeling extremely guilty for having those kind of thoughts about her. Um, yeah, that was a big struggle.
Okay, but was there any point at all? And I'm sorry I'm pushing you, but was there any point at all that you actually wanted to harm the baby?
No,
Okay.
that was something that I know I definitely didn't want to harm her. There were times when she would possibly cry, and the most I would do is just sit there and almost zone out.
Mm.
I would literally just sit there and just be like, oh, okay, with pretty much this expression on my face and just, yeah. But I never for 1 second wanted to harm her in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Well, again, the reason why I'm mentioning this for the benefit of the people who are listening is it's one of the um, untalked about, if there's such a word, symptoms of postnatal
Yes.
depression, where it gets to an extreme. So the two extremes are where a woman considers harming herself, but then at the same time harming the baby as well. So, big
Yes.
question, Yasmin.
Sorry, okay. Before you ask the question, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna jump in.
yeah.
After I had her, that those were the two main questions that I was constantly asked. So, NHS staff are trained to look out for these kind of things. But like I said, I just wanted someone to talk to, someone to give me some kind of counseling or something to do with my grief and to help me deal with that in a way that was healthy and that would have avoided me going down or slipping into depression. But like I said, everybody just kept asking if I wanted to harm my child, which was pretty much the main clinical symptoms that they were looking for. I didn't have that. I didn't have any thoughts of harming myself. I love myself a bit too much to do that. But yeah, no, I didn't have any of that.
Okay, so big question, Yasmin. 6 months, how did you get out of this?
A lot of prayer. And after my lowest day, I decided rather than trying to do too much at once, and rather than trying to, um, yeah, do too much at once, I would be better off starting with smaller goals and giving myself the room to not, to essentially fail at them, to not get them done. So I would have like a to-do list of things I needed to do during the day, and I saw them more as little goals. And if I wasn't able to take everything off my list, it wasn't the end of the world. I didn't necessarily have to beat myself up over it. Um, and when I did do something that I ticked off my list, I would, even if it was just within myself, um, celebrate my goals, celebrate them as major wins, even though they were little wins. I celebrated them as though they were major wins and major victories. Like I said, prayed a lot. I definitely prayed a lot. One of my friends I spoke to introduced me to an app called Perspective.
Okay.
It's a journaling app. So that definitely helped a lot. I still use it till today to note down things that have happened in the course of my day. Um, I mean, before I had the app, I actually had tried putting a few things in my notes app on my phone. Um, it doesn't seem like much, but it is very, very therapeutic. If you're not talking to someone, that's the other advice I would give
Yeah.
women. If you're not speaking to someone or you don't feel like you're up to it or able to it, put your thoughts down on paper. It is very, very cathartic. Let me not use the wrong word. It's very, very therapeutic to put your
Therapeutic. Yeah.
thoughts down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that definitely helped. And my biggest inspiration were my daughter and my husband.
Mm. Okay.
So I didn't want whatever I was dealing with or going through to affect her adversely, be it now or later on in life. And I know babies and children, as much as they might not be able to articulate their feelings or their thoughts, they definitely pick up on energies and vibes.
Yeah.
And I didn't want what I was dealing with I didn't want her to pick up on any of that and be a sad child.
Absolutely.
So looking back, the fact that so many people would meet her and just be like, oh my gosh, she's such a happy child. I didn't know that I needed to hear that constantly.
Mm.
And looking back, I realized that that was something I actually needed to hear. And that was God's way of helping me through it and letting me know that He was with me during the whole thing. So people constantly telling me that my child was a happy child was did amazing wonders because look, when I came out of it, I was like, okay. Or each time I would hear it, it would kind of click or ring a bell that okay, whatever I'm going through and however I'm dealing with it, at least it's not affecting her.
Okay. Wonderful. And so now you're an experienced mother, mother of two, two
Yes,
weeks into your second one. How do you feel?
I feel amazing.
Okay.
Tired, a little stressed at times, but amazing.
Okay. No baby blues, no
No,
crying.
no,
Okay. And you now know you know the things to watch out for.
yes,
Yeah, okay. All right. That's been fantastic, Yasmin. Um, any questions? Let's just take questions. Let me see how to do this. Remember again, I'm a novice. Okay, there are no questions posted yet. Um, um, sorry, I'm just getting my notes that keep falling down. Um, so 2 weeks into, you remember, like I said, baby blues usually starts about first, second, third day, and would usually resolve itself within a few weeks, 3, 4 weeks. The postnatal depression tends to start slightly later, can start after childbirth as well, but then last a lot longer. In fact, it's thought that it can last up to a year, and then in some very, very few cases, progress even further into a psychosis, which is a
yeah.
different ballgame completely. I know you said you feel great at this point in time, but what other things are you saying to yourself now to make sure that you don't slide into what happened before? Because obviously, if somebody's gone through it before,
Higher chance
and
of them
yeah,
going through it again.
so what are the things you're saying to yourself to say, I'm not going to let this happen again?
I don't think it's so much what I'm saying to myself as the circumstances.
Mm.
So with my second pregnancy, I had a lot of the same anxieties I had in the first one. And then I had extra anxieties based on the circumstances and the things I went through with the last one. So with second pregnancy, I had the same typical anxieties that most pregnant women would have. Praying for no miscarriage, praying for a safe delivery, all of those usual stuff. And then I had new anxieties where I was thinking, okay, I hope my granddad doesn't pass away the same way my grandma did while I'm pregnant. That was a very real one. Um, I hope I don't go into depression again. That was a very real one. Um, I'm just trying to think of what else. am I really ready to have another child? Um, do I really want to go through that whole baby stage all over again? It was quite a few anxieties. I didn't realize, pardon me, I didn't realize how much anxiety I was carrying until one day during the course of the pregnancy. I was just very, very down. Um, I went to bed crying. My husband caught me. I couldn't put it into words, so I typed it out on my phone. I gave it to him to read. And it wasn't until after I'd written it down and I realized how much it was and how much weight I'd been carrying.
Yeah.
And once I put it all down, it literally just felt like I'd lifted a weight off my shoulders. I felt so much better. But yeah, like I said, circumstances are so much more different. Even though there's a lockdown and everybody's been, worried or scared about lockdown, I'm just here like, lockdown's great. I don't have to go anywhere. I have my two children. We're all healthy. Thank God for that. It's cold anyway, so I don't have to go out. Perfect.
Wonderful. And of course, by the time you get into
Sorry,
the
Uncle,
third,
I'm just going to
yeah,
add,
yeah, go on. Yeah.
also, for everyone that thought my second child was going to be born on my birthday, I was dispelling all the energies. I think that was the highlight. It was a great birthday present, but I'm glad she didn't come on my birthday because I wasn't willing to share. But she shares her birthday with one of her grandmas. So,
Wonderful, wonderful.
yeah.
Okay, and so obviously looking forward to better times, and then when you get into the third pregnancy and the fourth pregnancy, because we agreed at least two more, it'll be.
No, Uncle, you mentioned I pleaded the fifth.
I thought we agreed.
No.
Okay,
You mentioned I pleaded the fifth.
okay, it'd be great, to do third and fourth. Okay,
We can
thank.
adopt.
Sorry.
We can adopt.
Okay, all right. That's another conversation.
Yes.
Okay, Yasmin, thanks a lot for just sharing your experiences. I trust that it's been helpful to somebody today. Like I said, and just to recap on some of the things that we talked about, that postnatal depression is actually a lot more common than people imagine. Up to 20% of people have postnatal depression, as
And
compared. Sorry?
I was going to say it's a very, very fine line
It is, yeah.
between being normal and slipping to that side of things.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy. I mean, someone can think, oh, no, that won't happen to me. That would never happen to me. But then you go through so many changes um, in order to become a mother. And even when you are a mother, that it's, like I said, is a very, very fine line
Yeah, yeah,
between being normal and going down that way.
yeah. And the normality, again, just to explain to people, the normality, part of the normality is the period of baby blues, where again, up to 80% of women, particularly in the first pregnancy, will have some manifestation of baby blues, just crying excessively. A lot of that due to hormonal changes, the pressures around. But like you said, Yasmin, and I think it's important information for everybody, it's very easy to now slip from the normal baby blues to postnatal depression. I think from what you said, it's very important that women and people around are more self-aware.
Yes.
That there's a phrase that I come across quite often when people talk about postnatal depression, and it's the phrase suffering in silence.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to just, say something about that as we start to round up?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's definitely suffering in silence because there's so many things that. So going out was a big deal for me because one of the symptoms of postnatal depression is weight gain. I had the opposite effect. So I lost a lot of weight and I lost it very rapidly. So even when I would go out, the first thing people would say was, oh, you look amazing. You've snapped back so quickly. How did you do it? And I'm just like, or as Nigerians say, oh, you look like you're ready for number two. And I'm just like, no. Like nobody was stopping to think of what those words actually mean and what kind of effect it would have where I was mentally.
Yeah.
It was horrible because I'd lost so much weight. Even my pre-pregnancy clothes didn't fit me. They were big.
Mm.
And so going out was a huge challenge. I would find something that would fit me, but it wouldn't necessarily be right for the occasion.
Mm.
And so going out and hearing all those statements constantly, it wasn't once, it wasn't twice, it wasn't one or two people, it was every single time I went out. And people would say it as a joke, oh, you're ready for number two. And I'm just like, no, no. That was literally my response. My response would be no.
Okay.
You don't have to make a comment, just especially when it comes to weight, just let people be if they feel the need to talk. And then going out as well, I just thought about it. I was just like, it's just very long to have first carry a big bag full of all baby stains, and yeah, going out was not the one. Even though I did go out a few times and hang out with a few friends who had babies around the same time as I did as well. Just because I knew I needed to leave the house and not stay indoors, which was making it worse. Um, but yeah, speaking out and speaking to someone about it. After I'd come out of it, one thing I did ensure that I did was to speak out about it more. So at the time I was going through it, I didn't feel like I wanted to speak to anyone about it or let anyone know what exactly was going on.
Yeah.
Um, but having come out of it, I, yeah, I've made sure to speak about it as much as I can,
Exactly.
just so that um, if it helps one person, even if it's just one person, at least I know, okay, something great has come out of it.
Okay. And talking about speaking out about it, let's end with a recap of, so what are, first of all, what are the symptoms you had? And then we can add to that so that people are aware. So let's just recap. What are the symptoms you had?
Feeling very down, typical symptoms of depression, just not even going up and down. I was down most days, not wanting to leave my bed. Um, at least once, suicidal thoughts, although brief. Um, it, yeah, like you said, apathy and detachment towards my child. I felt very lost. Um, I'm just trying to think what else. Didn't really want to be around anyone.
Yeah.
What else? I think those were the main things. Not even wanting to go out.
Yeah.
Those were the main symptoms I had.
Okay. And just to add to that as we end, and it varies from person to person, but it's just, and I think it's important for us to understand it in the context of mental health. Like I said, that's why it's now referred to as perinatal mental health. There's another terminology, it's called perinatal mood disorders. And
Okay.
why I'm saying this is that it might help people to understand what they're going through. So any kind of mood disorder, it could be from anxiety, nervousness, even being afraid of things, the extremes of sometimes not eating at all, loss of appetite, not just wanting to eat anything at all, to eating everything that is around. And so it's just a wide
Mm-hmm.
gamut of mood disorders. And like we said, this is to every single person, particularly women, but like we said, it also affects men as well. In fact, talking about men, maybe to also add some of the things that men go through as part of their postnatal uh, depression in men. With men, they say that apart from the mood disorders, there are symptoms like withdrawal, anger,
Mm-hmm.
because all of a sudden you're meant to be looking after your wife and a new baby, and then you yourself, you're not feeling very well with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be a lot of anger. And all these symptoms, ladies and gentlemen, are just for us to be aware of. But most importantly, like Yasmin has said today, is to speak out about. The whole essence of today is to encourage us to be aware and then to speak out about postnatal mental health. So, Yasmin, thank you ever so much. Praying that this journey with the second baby will be even more enjoyable than the first one.
Amen.
There will be no recurrence in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And just trusting that from being vulnerable and sharing your experiences, it will help somebody else in their pregnancies as well.
Fingers
So,
crossed.
yeah, so thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank you for
And
having me on.
I'm sure our original host, you know me, I'm the fake host, I'm just the apprentice host. Our original host will have you back at some point to share some more. So,
No,
ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today's Hangout session. Trust you were blessed by all that we heard. And it may not be you, but from what we've heard today, you might want to share with people around you, a friend, a sister, a niece, but particularly in their first pregnancies, because it's more common in first pregnancies. So, trust we've all been blessed, and have a wonderful Saturday.
before you go, Uncle, can I
Yes.
just, for people around who have pregnant, like you said, pregnant nieces or sisters or what have you, it's if you're going to ask questions, apart from looking out for the symptoms, um, if you're asking how they are, ask with the genuine intention of knowing or wanting to know how they are actually doing, as opposed to just the generic, oh, how are you? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
If they just say, I'm okay, and you notice the symptoms, push a little harder and just ask, are you like, what is going on with you?
Yeah.
How is your mental health? How is your mental state? What are you thinking of?
Yeah.
Those kind of probing questions would help.
Yeah, because also it's been found that a lot of people sleep under the radar because people don't ask the right questions and pursue.
Yes,
Yeah, you're absolutely
that
right.
was the case with me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Yasmin. And thank you for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful Saturday. Thank you for joining us. And next week, you'll have the original host back. Have a great week.